Welcome, Commander Laos. Thank you for attending this hearing. The gathered officials exchanged glances before the senior officer, Admiral Carrion, spoke again. We are here today to address the serious allegations you've made against Lieutenant Jackson. Your report is quite alarming, and before we proceed, we want to fully understand the events that transpired. Commander Laos, a seasoned and decorated officer, nodded in acknowledgement. He took a deep breath, trying to remain composed. Admiral Carrion, Captain Reeve, I stand by every word in my report. The actions of Lieutenant Jackson were reckless and endangered the entire crew. I will clarify any questions you have, but let me make it clear that I will not back down if the goal of this meeting is to excuse his behavior. Captain Reeve raised his hands, trying to calm the commander. No one is here to cover up anything, Commander. This is the first time your unit has worked with an officer from the Frontier Corps, and Admiral Carrion requested my presence to help bridge any misunderstandings. I haven't spoken to Jackson about this incident yet, as I wanted to hear your side first. Your report uses words like gross negligence, insubordination, and even jeopardizing mission integrity. Clearly, something went terribly wrong, and we need to ensure it doesn't happen again. Please, in your own words, tell us what occurred. Laos sighed, still wary but willing to recount the events. We were tasked with exploring the planet Veritis 7. Initial scans showed that while the atmosphere was breathable, the surface was treacherous with unpredictable weather patterns and massive ravines. My team, consisting of an engineer, a geologist, and 2 security officers, was sent to survey the area for potential settlement sites. Lieutenant Jackson and a squad of Frontier Corps soldiers were assigned as our escort. We landed without incident near one of the larger ravines, where our scans indicated a stable plateau on the other side. As we prepared to set up our equipment, Jackson suddenly ordered us to halt. He claimed to have seen movement near the ravine edge, but our sensors picked up nothing. I asked him to clarify, but he refused to explain further, only insisting that we take cover and move away from the edge. My team was frustrated. We were losing valuable time and daylight. I questioned his judgment, but he ignored my concerns and issued a direct order for his squad to secure the area. They spread out, weapons drawn, and after a tense few minutes, Jackson declared the area unsafe. He said we needed to retreat immediately. I demanded an explanation, but he simply pointed to a rock formation near the edge of the ravine. It was just a pile of stones, nothing unusual. He claimed it was a sign of an imminent landslide. I argued that our geologist had already confirmed the stability of the ground, but Jackson wouldn't listen. He insisted that the formation was unnatural and a sign of an impending collapse. When I refused to abandon the mission, Jackson physically restrained me, citing his authority to override my command in matters of safety. I was furious, but his soldiers backed him up, and we were forcibly escorted back to the shuttle. We left the planet, and I immediately filed my report. Upon our return, Laos paused, his frustration evident. And now here we are. I want to make it clear that Lieutenant Jackson's actions were not only unwarranted but also endangered the mission's success. I expect disciplinary action to be taken. Admiral Carrion exchanged a glance with Captain Reeve, who looked contemplative. Reeve pressed a button on the console in front of him. Lieutenant Jackson, this is Captain Reeve. We're reviewing the Veritis 7 mission, and I need clarification on your decision to abort the operation due to a suspected landslide. The line crackled before Jackson's voice came through. Sir, the rock formation near the ravine was consistent with signs of recent seismic activity. The Frontier Corps has encountered similar formations on other planets that were precursors to landslides. I wasn't about to risk the lives of the entire team. Reeve nodded, his suspicion confirmed. Thank you, Lieutenant. That will be all. Laos leaned forward, incredulous. Seismic activity? Our sensors detected nothing. He was paranoid over a few rocks. Reeve held up a hand. Commander, the Frontier Corps operates in some of the most hazardous environments in the galaxy. They're trained to recognize dangers that our standard sensors might miss. Jackson was acting on his training and experience. His actions, though extreme, were in line with protocol for protecting the lives of his team. Leos frowned, unwilling to let go of his anger. But we had a mission to complete. We can't just abandon every objective because of a hunch. Reeve leaned back, his tone calm but firm. Commander, Veritis 7 is known for sudden and violent geological shifts. The fact that Jackson recognized a potential threat and acted on it might have saved lives. You weren't just dealing with rocks, you were dealing with a planet known for its unpredictability. His caution was justified. Admiral Carrion finally spoke, her tone measured. Commander, while I understand your frustration, it's clear that Lieutenant Jackson acted in the best interests of the crew's safety. The mission parameters allow for aborting operations if there's a credible threat, and Jackson believed there was. Leo slumped slightly in his chair, the fight leaving him. I suppose I didn't fully understand the extent of the dangers. I'll revise my report, but I still wish he had communicated more effectively. Reeve nodded sympathetically. Communication is key, and that's something we can all work on. But for now, I suggest a debrief with Lieutenant Jackson to clear the air, perhaps over a drink, as is tradition. Leos managed a small smile. Perhaps with your permission, I'll take my leave and handle that now. Permission granted, Commander, Admiral Carrion said with a nod. As Leos exited, she turned to Reeve. Let's make sure they work out their differences. We need both of them on the same page. Reeve sighed, already thinking about the upcoming conversation. I'll do my best, Admiral. Some bridges just need a bit more reinforcement. Commander Leos left the meeting room, his mind racing as he walked down the sleek metallic corridor of the space station. He replayed the conversation in his head, still grappling with the idea that he might have misjudged Lieutenant Jackson. As much as he hated to admit it, the logic presented by Captain Reeve and Admiral Carrion made sense. But Leos couldn't shake the lingering frustration that Jackson had overridden his command without a proper explanation. He made his way to the officers' lounge, a spacious area with large windows offering a view of the stars. The station orbited a distant gas giant, its swirling clouds visible from the lounge. Leos approached the bar, ordering a stiff drink. As he waited, he heard the door slide open behind him. Turning, he saw Lieutenant Jackson enter the lounge. The younger officer spotted Leos and hesitated for a moment before walking over. Commander, Jackson greeted, his tone respectful but cautious. Lieutenant, Leos replied, nodding slightly. He gestured to the bar. Join me? Jackson took a seat next to Leos, ordering a drink of his own. They sat in silence for a moment, the tension between them palpable. Finally, Leos broke the silence. Jackson, I want to understand something. Why didn't you explain what you saw down there on Veritis 7? You just ordered us to retreat without giving us any context. Jackson sighed, taking a sip of his drink before responding. Commander, I know it looked like I was acting on instinct alone, but I've seen rock formations like that before in the Frontier Corps. We're trained to recognize subtle signs of danger in unstable environments. I should have explained myself better, but at that moment, I was focused on getting everyone out safely. Leos frowned, his frustration resurfacing. But our sensors didn't pick up any seismic activity. How could you be so sure? The sensors are good, but they're not infallible, Jackson said. Veritis 7's geological conditions are unlike anything we've encountered before. The Frontier Corps has dealt with planets like it, places where the ground can shift with little warning. I didn't want to risk anyone's life based on the assumption that the sensors were flawless. Leo stared into his glass, mulling over Jackson's words. He understood the logic but still resented that Jackson had overridden his command. I get that you were trying to protect us, but you need to understand my position too. I had a mission to complete, and your actions jeopardized that. Jackson nodded. I understand, sir, and I didn't mean to undermine your authority. But in the Frontier Corps, we're trained to prioritize safety above all else. If there's even a hint of danger, we're taught to pull back and reassess. I could have handled it better, explained my reasoning, but my priority was getting us out before something went wrong. Leos considered Jackson's words carefully. He knew the Frontier Corps operated under different protocols, often facing the harshest and most unpredictable environments. He took a deep breath, letting go of some of his lingering resentment. "I appreciate that, Jackson," Leo said finally. "I can see where you're coming from. I was too focused on the mission and not enough on the potential dangers. But we're going to need to find a way to work together more effectively in the future. If we're going to succeed out here, we need to communicate better." Jackson's expression softened, a hint of relief in his eyes. "Agreed, Commander. I'll make sure to be more clear in the future. We're all on the same team, after all." They sat in silence for